Hello and welcome to part 4 of the PyAutoGui tutorial series, and in this one we're going to cover the message box functions that are included in this library. Now PyAutoGui comes with 4 different types of message box functions, and in my opinion they're fairly simple to use. So let's get started. First, import PyAutoGui, and we're going to start with the alert message box function. The way we use it is we use PyAutoGui.alert, and then of course, since it's a function, we use these brackets. Now if I run this as it is without specifying anything, what we get is just this fairly simple window with an OK button and a close button. Of course, that's not ideal and doesn't really alert or warn the user, so we want to include title. Now let's say that this is alert box, so that would be the title of our box. We're going to have text, which would be this is an alert. And then what we can also change is the text that was by default on the button was OK, so we can leave it as it is, or we can change that to be equal to, let's say, alright. So not OK, but something very similar. And if we run this now, we need also here comma. If we run this now, then this is how our new alert box looks like. Now, when it comes to this type of box, usually it's used to warn or inform the user regarding something, so you don't really want to store the action of the user. But if you want to basically store that, you can also use it, for example, let's say a variable x. But keep in mind that if we click on, so now I would like to print what basically is being stored into that variable. So if I click on here on the alright button, then you see that the variable x is now equal to the alright, which is the button that we clicked. Now, if we click the close button, which is the other option that the user has in order to close this alert box, note that it again becomes alright. So the only thing that you would get from the user is whether he or she has closed the box. And since it's just an information, it doesn't really matter whether the user has clicked, which button the user has clicked, because it's just informing the user. Now, it's a different situation if you have a confirm message box. So if you have a confirm message box, instead of using .alert, you're going to use .confirm. This is the second type of message box, but in that case, you want the user to have multiple options. So you want it to have at least 2 options. Let's say it would be, this is just a confirmation box, and the text would be, do you confirm, whatever is the question. And then we're going to provide 2 options for the user. Let's say simple yes and no options. So those would be the 2 buttons. And now let's see what X is and what it can become. So this is how the confirmation box looks like. So as you can see, we have 2 buttons. Now, note that we don't have this X button available to close. So we can't use that. We can only use yes or no. So of course, if we click yes, then our variable X becomes yes. And then of course, if we click no, then that's what our X variable becomes. And of course, then you can use functions such as, or just write code based on that. So let's say that if X is equal to yes, then we can print it is confirmed. And then if, or like elif X is equal to no, then we can print it is not confirmed. And then, yeah, the user's choice is stored, and then based on that, we can continue with our script. So if you want to store the user's input, in this case, this might be something that you want to do, then this is how you would do it. But for the alert function, it's probably useless because, yeah, first of all, you get, the only thing that you get as an information is that the user has read the alert. That's it. If that's relevant to you, then of course you should do that. The third type of message box is the prompt. And of course, as what we did before, we just changed this part after the dot. We're going to change it to prompt. Title, simple prompt box. Text would be, let's say, enter your name. So that would be our text. And then we are not going to have buttons here, but what we are going to have is actually, let's start with nothing, just with simple title and text. And again, we're also going to store that input and print the input. Now this is what we have. As you can see, we have a simple prompt box with enter your name text, with a prompt for the text, which would be, let's say, your name. Well, it's quite clear that we need to enter your name. And then we have OK or cancel. Now, the user has three options. Of course, the OK button, the cancel button, and this close button. So if we have OK now, well, X becomes your name, which is the input of the user. If the user decides to write, but then clicks cancel, then it becomes none. So none is, X becomes none if the user clicks on the cancel button, and that is the same if the user clicks on the close button. So just keep in mind that those are the options that the user has. So X would either become none or whatever the user's input was. So you might want to have a loop, for example, until you get some input from the user that it keeps running. So if it's none or while none, right, just use this prompt and call it again and again until it's not none. Yeah, just make sure that you're not stuck in a loop. Then the last, well, actually one more thing, what you can also use here is you can have default to be equal, because by default when we run this box, it's appearing as an empty box without any text. But you can have here, for example, let's make it all caps, your name. Now what this does is, by default, our prompt has this your name all caps there, but as you can see, it's already selected. So once we start writing, then it becomes overwritten. So these are the three things that you can change when it comes to your prompt message box. And the last one is password message box. So as we did before, instead of prompt, now we use password, title, simple, password box, text, enter your password, and then now default this is something that we can use here as well, because there is a box where the user would have input. However, it's probably the worst idea that you can do is have some default text for the password, because it doesn't add any value, so I would not use that. What I'm going to do is, let's see how the default looks like, and then we're going to see what we can change to that. So this is our simple password box. We have an option, a question, or a request to enter our password, which would be your password. And as you can see, that's what's being stored. And by default, as you can see, you don't see, of course, the characters. They are being so-called masked. So there is a mask in form of this character that you don't see. And again, if you close it, it becomes none. And same goes if you use the close button. Now, that mask you can change to be equal to, you can have it as an empty space. So anytime that a character is being entered, your password, it was just empty space. But you can also have, for example, a number, or you can have probably, let's see with just one number. So if you have your / or just a space password, then this is misspelled. Anyway, so as you can see, every character becomes masked into a 1. If we have 1, 2, 3, for example, multiple characters, then when you start writing, then it doesn't work. So keep in mind that it only takes one character. You can't mask one character into multiple others. At least that's not how this works. So your password, and then of course it's stored correctly. And this is the fourth and final message box function that is available in PyAutoGui. Keep in mind that this is something that you can use if you want something quick and efficient and simple, but of course if you want something to be modifiable, then you're not looking at the right solution, because the only things that you can modify are title, text, mask, and of course to set the default to be equal to something that's other than a blank prompt. And this is something that you can use. So the default is something that you can use for the password and the prompt. Mask is something that you only use for the passwords. And then for all the others, the only thing that you can use is basically just the title, text, and button for the alert, or buttons, which is plural, for the confirm message box. That would be all. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section below, and until next time.